For example, she's warm when you agree with her, when you prioritize her needs, when you don't challenge her narrative, when you go along just to keep the peace. And she becomes distant when you assert a boundary, you disagree, you express a need, or you say no. And slowly, love becomes something you earn.
Welcome to the Narc Free Man podcast.
Welcome back to the Narc Free Man podcast. If you are new here, my name is Phillip Dugas, and this show exists for men who want clarity, strength, and control over their lives again after being emotionally drained inside a relationship that no longer feels safe, equal, or real. Today's episode is based on chapter 4 of my upcoming book, The Narcissistic Wife. And this chapter is one of the most important in the entire book because it explains something that confuses good men more than almost anything else. Here's the confusion. She can be loving and then suddenly cold. She can make you feel chosen again and then pull away. One day she's affectionate, the next day she's distant. And you are left asking yourself, what did I do wrong? Why did this change? And how do I get her back? If you've ever asked those questions, stay with me, because today we are talking about how love quietly stops being love and becomes leverage. And once you see this pattern clearly, you will never experience your marriage the same way again. Now, one of the hardest things for men to understand is this. A narcissistic wife is not cold all the time. She can be warm. She can be affectionate. She can be attentive. She can make you feel like the man she chose again. And that's exactly why this dynamic is so confusing. Because if she were cruel all the time, you'd leave, right? If she were distant all the time, you'd detach. But she's not. She gives you just enough warmth to keep you invested and just enough withdrawal to keep you chasing. And here's the key insight most men miss. The warmth doesn't disappear randomly. It disappears when you stop complying, not when you stop loving her, not when you stop trying, and not when you stop caring, but when you assert yourself, when you disagree, when you set a boundary, when you stop managing her emotions for her. That's when the temperature changes. When was the last time her affection dropped right after I stood up for myself? Keep that question in mind, guys. Look, in a healthy marriage, affection flows from connection. But in a narcissistic marriage, affection flows from performance. And over time, you start noticing patterns, even if you can't explain them yet. For example, she's warm when you agree with her, when you prioritize her needs, when you don't challenge her narrative, when you go along just to keep the peace. And she becomes distant when you assert a boundary, you disagree, you express a need, or you say no. And slowly, love becomes something you earn. Not through intimacy, not through honesty, but through obedience. And this is where the conditioning begins. You don't consciously decide to change who you are. You simply notice that certain versions of you are rewarded and others are punished. So you adjust. You soften your tone. You pick your battles. You swallow things that matter to you. I once worked with a man who told me something that stopped me cold. He said, I don't even care if I'm right anymore. I just want the peace back. That one sentence tells you everything. He wasn't trying to win. He wasn't trying to dominate. He wasn't trying to control her. He just wanted the warmth, the calm, the version of her that felt safe. That's not love, that's survival. And the moment peace becomes conditional, the marriage stops being a partnership and becomes a training environment. If you've ever thought, I'll just let this go so things don't blow up, look, this next part matters. Eventually, you realize there are rules. They are never spoken out loud, but they are enforced. If you do X, you get affection. If you don't, affection is withdrawn. The transactions look something like this: emotional availability in exchange for silence, physical intimacy in exchange for compliance, and praise in exchange for surrendering boundaries. You are no longer a husband, you are a participant in a silent contract you never agreed to. And here's the part that exhausts men the most. The terms keep changing. What earned approval last year now barely avoids punishment. So you give more, you try harder, you compromise further, and the marriage becomes draining. One of the most destabilizing aspects of conditional love is inconsistency. One day you are such a great husband, the next coldness, distance, disapproval. This isn't accidental. Praise keeps you hopeful. A punishment keeps you compliant. This push-pull creates emotional whiplash. And here's why it's so powerful. Your nervous system starts chasing relief. Relief feels like love, but it's not. It's just the absence of punishment. That cycle, reward, withdrawal, relief, is what creates a trauma bond. Over time, something quiet but devastating happens. You stop expressing your real thoughts. You censor yourself. You choose peace over truth. You choose harmony over honesty. And compliance replaces intimacy. You are physically present, but emotionally guarded. You are married, but deeply alone. You may even tell yourself, at least we are not fighting, but inside, something essential has disappeared. Because real intimacy requires safety, and safety requires consistency. Narcissistic dynamics destroy consistency. The greatest damage of conditional love isn't the withdrawal of affection, it's the message underneath it. You are only worthy when you behave the way I want. That message changes a man. You stop acting from values, you start acting from fear. And eventually you realize something painful. You are not being loved, you are being managed. Conditional love trains you to abandon yourself to stay connected. But connection that requires self-erasure is not love. It's control. If you are experiencing conditional love, it does not mean you are weak. It means you are human. You stayed because you believed in love, loyalty, and commitment. The problem isn't that you care too much. The problem is that the relationship required you to stop being yourself to survive it. This chapter and this episode is only one piece of the larger framework. In my book, The Narcissistic Wife, I break down how conditional love forms, why good men stay, how to reclaim your clarity without becoming bitter, and how to stop negotiating your self-worth for peace. If this episode put words to something you have lived but couldn't explain, this book was written for you. Until next time, stay strong, stay steady, and stay narc free.